Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Butcher. I am the editor-at-large for TechCrunch. TechCrunch has about 20 million readers globally. We are based out of San Francisco. I'm based out of London. And we've been covering the boom in tech since 2005. And I also run my own events called theeuropas.com, which are about European startups. And I'm delighted to be here at unDavos.
Whoa!
So it's a fantastic idea to do these kinds of things, because I think obviously Davos is such a big event that, and the World Economic Forum, of course, that it's great to have a kind of more of a free-flowing kind of event with a lot of creativity, a lot of input from all sorts of people from all around the world. But that's just my interpretation. So I think it's better, the reason we're doing this really is for you to hear about what unDavos actually is. So, Mark Turrell, the founder of unDavos, what is unDavos?
So, unDavos is a community. At its basis, actually, in the most trivial way of looking at unDavos, the most trivial possible, there is a Telegram group that allows people to work out where they should go, what taxis they should get, and where they should sleep. Totally trivial. It's a free Telegram group. I mean, I could literally delete it by accident, particularly when it snows and the snows melt down, and the whole thing would just vanish. Obviously, it's more than that. But its most trivial perspective, but to some extent, I quite like the sort of trivializing this whole thing, because World Economic Forum, big, fancy-dancy type of stuff, very, very, very self-important. unDavos as a community is kind of the opposite. Nobody's had to sign up for a thing. There are arseholes in unDavos, but that just reflects the world. However, when they're in unDavos, they're not allowed to behave like arseholes. But we didn't tell them not to behave like that. They were kind of persuaded to not to behave like that. So for me, I was a WEF member, technology pioneer back in 2008. I did an IPO for my first software company in 2006, and so I was very much a traditionalist, WEF, white badge, super important. I was very transactional in 2009, but I wasn't invited back to the World Economic Forum in 2010. Because I was, but I would have to pay $100,000 instead of the cheaper tickets. But what I'd realized is that even back then, there were a whole bunch of investment bankers, lawyers, tax accountants, and they would be able to go in. They wouldn't
allegedly, I think is the word.
Sorry. Thank you for rescuing me on that one. Yeah. But right now, they wouldn't go to the Congress Center. They'd go to side events. And at the time, there were only 20 side events. I mean, we have more side events this morning than the World Economic Forum world did back in 2011, just to put that into some perspective. But what unDavos did is that once I came up with, let's say, a plan about how we could share information, a few people trusted me and broke the sort of the WEF barrier, like mental barrier. Now what's happened is unDavos. unDavos is a community of about 3,000 people directly in Telegram and another 3,000 or 4,000 extras who don't want to get overwhelmed. There is the unDavos Summit, which is what we're all here now for. 2,400 people have registered. That's a little bit less than the World Economic Forum. And whereas the World Economic Forum has a staff of, 650 and charges $250,000 to be a member, look at the energy and the buzz from this world over here. And we sort of see the direction of travel, just generally the street and everything else, is that the future of the world is unDavos. It's not going back to the sort of world of the few. But it's a bit weird.
Right.
It is a bit weird, though.
Well, I mean, I think it's a commendable vision. Does unDavos have a life beyond what happens here this week?
So more and more, yes. So before it didn't. Before whatever, Davos would exist, drop off a cliff, and then the first I would sort of learn of anything happening was in September. Somebody would say, "Hi, can you help me get me a hotel badge?" Right now, though, what we're looking at is many of the sessions that are taking place now, we've actually worked with the session owners to work out what is your follow-up plan. What are you actually going to do next? For example, on the energy side, they're sort of doing unconference stuff around the biggest energy conference in the world to do dinners and basically keep the spirit going. But I've also got one of my sort of side ideas is sort of an uneventful company that will be taking things like Cannes Lions, FIA in Saudi and unning them as well. Because that could be quite interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's...
Can we un-Europas?
You can un-Europe if you want. you also have like, I mean, there's other groups, isn't it? unDavos London, unDavos Paris. So there's a way of sort of keeping the kind of community going beyond what happens this week. Another my question here is, what are the kinds of content and themes that are going to be going on this week at unDavos? Give us a flavour. Who would we expect to see and collaborate with or meet?
So pretty much unDavos Summit kind of reflects Davos. So what do we have? It means that there's a big cohort of deep tech. So we've got quantum stuff, really cool, cybersecurity, space is a really big thing. But then climate is obviously a huge topic, but then it's addressing climate from everything from policy issues to tech to financing. Health is a big thing. So we have health at Davos right now with Northwell Health, and that's approaching health again from different areas. What we do is that we sort of work on, let's say, what are the big programs that we can sort of pull together enough of a coalition of people to make it interesting. Like corporate innovation now has gone from being two people wanting to have a chat over dinner into having a little bit of a half-day program. So it's creating the space where people can coalesce. At the same time, actually, there's some topics that I'm surprised that they aren't here. I was hoping for the future of education. It's one of my topics, hoping for the future of work, but nobody put their hand up to say, well, I would like to be responsible for doing it. But what it highlights then...
So you very much draw on the talent inside the community to put the content together.
For sure. And so who am I to decide what content comes in? Now, I have some level of decision making, but if nobody wants to take the effort to find speakers, write up a blurb, I'm not going to do it for you. So I think, but that also means that unDavos as a summit is quite a decentralized affair. So every single session has a session owner. Every single panel has a panel owner. There are a number of things they need to do, and if they do not do those things, there is no panel, or there is, I just cut them. Not because I'm cutting them, it's because they didn't do the work and they cut themselves. But so it's very much a distributed ownership model, but that allows it to be, I mean, obviously as dynamic as it is.
Right. Well, there you go. Very, very personal responsibility involved. It's going to be a very interesting year. It's going to be a very interesting 4 years, I think, as well.
My bet is 16 years, by the way.
For various reasons. 16. Well, we can debate about that. But what are your thoughts? I mean, obviously you're a long time WEF goer. I nearly forgot to mention I was a media leader at the WEF actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
At one point.
I helped you get a bed in Davos once.
You did? Yes, I know.
Yeah, 2011 or 12. Yeah.
That's yours.
12, I think.
No, it was a sofa, Mark. It was a sofa. Anyway, you have billionaires sleeping on the floor at Davos. But what's some of your thoughts over the next as we enter this year? There's been a lot of strife. There is continuing a lot of strife, a lot of global upheaval at various levels, and of course we've got the climate kind of heading toward climate change and climate issues heading towards at a sort of inexorable rate, whether we like it or not. What are some of your thoughts? And I mean, we've got this year to go. And next year, do you think it will be doing something very similar? We'll be having the same conversations? Will things have changed radically? What are your thoughts as someone who's been to these events for a long time?
So the unDavos Summit this year is titled "It All Changes." So I do my crystal ball to work out what's going to happen next. So I actually wrote a paper for the Bled Security Conference on the Davos Consensus. But actually, it's that what happens sort of down there on the promenade and towards the Congress Center, the world's great and the good work out what's going to happen next. And they're proven wrong every single year within 2 to 4 weeks. So I'm interested in what they'll say because it'll be the opposite. My reading on this is that we look at particularly one particular country, a democracy, has elected not just in one branch of power, but basically all branches of power. And there is a completely new mindset and spirit that will take not just that country, but every pie that country has a finger in. Now, that means something as an example, funding for international agencies. Many agencies have relied reliably on America, specifically to fund those agencies over decades. Now, though, reliably the answer will be no, or no and give me something else. So I actually see that right now, the sort of context about seeing change in the world, I think every single area of society is kind of not necessarily about to be ripped up, but is certainly going to be massively disrupted in every single country. Because just was looking at something like the FDA, and so FDA, Federal Drug Administration, something as basic as prove to me that your drug is safe is a method. I would not be surprised at all in the next 4 years or in the term afterwards that the FDA says, we as the FDA have to prove that your drug is unsafe, otherwise it's automatically going to be released. And just reverse it. It's simple, like, okay, switch it. Right now, space had to be government. Now space isn't government. I think there's going to be a lot of logic switches that we will see that will make profound implications everywhere, absolutely everywhere.
Well, and I think the big profound change that, especially on all our lips these days, is AI. And I know that the program unDavos has AI running through it a lot. I mean, that's very much an accelerant on all of these technologies, but also it's kind of an accelerant on geopolitics as well, because there's an AI race between the US and China in particular.
Well, and you look at sort of the tech geopolitics. I mean, you've got AI as one. The other one that I'm looking at hugely is quantum. So quantum computing is vast amounts of extra resources and doing computing in ways that we haven't thought about yet. So for me, I'm looking at what happens when we have quantum plus AI. Now, there's masses of data sets and everything else, but Davos is an interesting place where you can go down the street and you've got China, you have India, just because, let's say, before the world's great and the good had a universal model of what is good, what is very clear just walking down the street is that it's not a universal model. If you're lucky, that way of thinking is between Promenade 40 and Promenade 65. And then Promenade 66 is a completely different way of thinking. So right now, this global world that we have, I think people just haven't fundamentally understood the consequences. I mean, we live in Europe right now, and Europe has a set of rules. But at the moment, my Meta Ray-Ban glasses, I can't use it for AI now because of an interpretation of a rule. But if other people had a VPN and were in a different place, they could have a different set of rules. So, I mean, it's sort of Davos is almost like the microcosm of how the world stitches together. But, I mean, there is absolutely global competition. And the other thing as well with AI and the tech companies is you'll make vast amounts of money if you pick the right one. Vast amounts. So, therefore, there is a massive incentive. The other thing then is that, say, fortunately, the tools and the knowledge to get into these areas is basically trivial. Absolutely trivial. I mean, it gets even more trivial when you use AI to write your code for you. And so then it means we're just, I mean, I actually see that there'll be a whole renaissance of whatever, technology, adaptation, creation, in all kinds of areas. So whilst at the same time everything changes, I don't think it's all going to change for bad. I think there's huge opportunities for just sort of wackadoodle crazy stuff, of which some of it will be good.
Well, yeah, and I think one of the sort of ongoing themes of WEF, especially over the last 20 years, has been, accelerating the development of emerging economies and emerging countries. But of course now, with access to AI tools, many of these countries might even, they'll accelerate very well, thank you very much, without the help of the developed world, which might be very interesting to watch. Finally, and we'll do a little bit of Q&A for you guys if you want to ask any questions or make any points. But finally, if you're coming cold to unDavos and you don't know who's here or how to navigate, what are some of your advice to people of what sessions to go to, how to do it? And obviously there's a website, etc. Just what are the practical things to say?
So I quite often get people asking, what should I go do? And my thing is, I don't know who you are. So it's like, can you recommend a restaurant? Yes, here's this place. It's got fantastic gluten and it's also got peanuts everywhere. That would be bad. So right now, the best thing you could do is work out how to help yourself and take responsibility for your own actions. Not pointing at people here, but just like generally people. So I had a conversation with a lady talking about indigenous rights and things. Well, I said, well, you actually might not have the knowledge, but there is a thing called Davos Week, davosweek.com, and it's searchable. And you just type in indigenous people, and then you see that there might be, I know that there's probably around 5 or 10 events. I just don't know where and I don't know when, but it's there because the knowledge has been put into a place to make it accessible. I think that
And
also...
you guys have also got a website as well.
And then, yeah, so we have undavos.com, which is our unDavos website. So we have Davos Week, which is also me as well. I did that too. I build things, actually. I even have time to actually make applications too. But then there's also the unDavos Telegram group, which means that if you're asking a question that hasn't been asked before, you can ask it and somebody will answer it. Or you could do a search and the answer has probably been answered already. So, but ultimately, generally, and by the way, if you'd like to help me, if you want me to help you get into the Swedish lunch, no. But it's also partially, and there's sort of balance between the newbies and the sort of older people. If you've done Davos before, we always used to have ways of getting into stuff. Many of those ways are necessarily stopping working. So it's cool that you were able to do the Swedish lunch for 5 or 6 years. That was cool. Nice for you. However, now I think this year they had over 4,000 people applying, and they just simply don't have space. And so if you were lucky to get good things in the last years, consider yourself grateful about having had the experience, but don't consider yourself as though you're being sort of somehow hard done by on a personal basis because you didn't get a free invite now. Because it's just much bigger. I mean, now there's about 20,000 people in town. Back when I was here in 2011, there were about 4,500 people in town. It just big.
Just goes to show how much it's exploded.
Yeah, massively.
Right. Well, and I suppose also next year you could also run your own unDavos session if you wanted to get involved.
Absolutely, we'd love it.
And contribute to your community. Well, thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks to Mark Turrell for putting this all together.
Thank you, Mike.
To you, we have 5 minutes or so for any Q&A, any questions, any points. I'm gonna rove around like a TV host. Okay, and it'd be fantastic if everyone says like their name, their company. Don't do a long speech, just a question or a point.
Yeah, this is Srini, and I'm from US. We are exclusively working on agentic AI. So, do you think agentic AI is going to replace human workforce?
Well, I mean, if we were having this conversation a year and a half ago, the question would have been, I'm working on Gen AI, and do you think Gen AI will replace the workforce? Next year, it'll be something different, and next year it'll be something different again and again and again. Partially because we technologists like inventing stuff, and then in order to get enough VC money potentially to do sexy stuff, whatever is the topic, we'll go do that. Will it replace work? Yes. Will it create work? Yes. It will expand capabilities a lot, but I do see that there are many things that are sort of trivial pieces of work that it's relatively easy to get AI to go do, even if it just whatever, click mouse, click mouse, click mouse. So I see that there's a lot of potential there, but I think generally people are surprised at how few jobs have been let go yet out of AI, but I think it's just a matter of time. But yes, there is lots of potential there.
We've got a roving mic. If anyone wants to, just say hello if you like. If you don't want to don't have a question on your lips. Go ahead. We'll bring a microphone to you.
Hi, I'm Mia, and I was wondering what's one of the wackadoodle ideas that you're working on right now? Your favorite, maybe.
Well, actually, so if I reframe the question into being, what are the 4 big things that Mark would like? Frame that. So the first thing is, let's say, taking this unDavos conference and spirit into other countries and places and things. So that's one thing on the list. If anybody would like to get involved, please speak to me. The second thing is scaling impact. So I have a 25-year plan to change the world for better. You're all part of it, even if you didn't know it. I started the plan in 2008. I worked to bring down dictatorships, Zimbabwe, other stuff. So there's a whole bunch of backstory reasons why you're all here. Partially just it's about connecting the dots at scale and network of networks. What I'd like to do, though, is in order to scale even more, is I need to scale impact. And particularly when we look at funding being removed out of international organizations and things, we just need to scale the good stuff faster because our planet is literally burning and drowning at the same time, sometimes even in the same state. So scaling impact, number 3. Number 2. Second one is that angels and acceleration. So right now, Davos produces unicorns. It's a great way to find them. It's a great way to develop them. It's a great way to make unicorns. What I find crazy is that angel investors and early stage VCs haven't taken advantage of that. If we'd have been sitting in piano bar partners, we would have banked 3 unicorns every single year for the last 20 years. We didn't. It's a stupid idea. So right now, this is the next thing: is how do we have the sort of super angel network? But I'll only do it if there is a secondary market. Because being an angel investor is a very stupid idea. Because if you're lucky, it takes 10 years to get your money out. 7 years as a VC, stupid idea. We have to have a secondary market because a secondary market will free up trillions of dollars of value, trillions of dollars.
It's quite hard though for early stage as a technology journalist covering a lot of early stage companies. I think they'll go to like the trade shows and the tech conferences rather than Davos or WEF. So do you think that's a bit difficult to sort of see that actually happening though?
I think so. I mean, unDavos is impossible to see happening, and yet it's here. So you always need to have some people to start, ignition, and then you need to have some people to sort of throw the embers on the fire to then sort of grow it. Right now, then, all it takes is for 1 or 2 successes for things to work, but many of the pieces are already in place. I've been hearing about, since I've been mentioning to people secondary markets for whatever early stage stuff, people keep mentioning, oh, this is appearing here and this is appearing here. So I think the pieces of the puzzle are here. It just sometimes takes a little bit of oomph and sometimes a physical space between 2 and 4 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday at the Hilton to then make these things happen.
I think there's certainly an opportunity for tech companies and entrepreneurs who come to Davos to get the relationships with the big strategic companies that could totally move the needle on their businesses, not necessarily VCs, but certainly like these strategic investment or strategic partnerships and alliances is very, very, there's a lot of potential for that, and often it's left on the table. Did you have a question, Sarah, or did you just, okay. Oh, we've got one at the back there. Cool.
Hi, Pippa from the UK. You mentioned burning and flooding, a planet that's burning and flooding. It's also losing its biodiversity at a rate of knots, so the nature agenda. I just wondered what you feel about nature technology in the whole framing of what you've been talking about, and thank you very much for your for doing this, really. Thank you.
And I think, well, is it important? Yes. Now, it's also, I mean, there's just a whole bunch of other technologies at the same time. What I do see, though, is that a lot of people, particularly first-timers coming to Davos, are quite messianic, and they believe that if they just basically shout at people enough that the person they're speaking to has got a BlackRock badge will say, BlackRock will change your investment thing. Now, of course, their BlackRock badge says, I'm the chauffeur for BlackRock, and you've just sold to completely the wrong person. I think for the people that are, I mean, so I'm sort of, I was a technology pioneer in 2008. I was a young global leader from the WEF 2010. So I was a WEF member for many years. And WEF way of thinking is just, let's say, strategically different to how the startup world would work and how the NGO world works. Because it's much more interconnected and it's much more developing relationships. So right now, this is a good, I would treat, if you're in this sort of type of sort of area, I would treat this Davos as an opportunity to, let's say, road test how you might connect and work with others. The other thing is that no matter how important your topic is, no matter how cool your company is, no matter how cool you are, you will not be the most interesting person in the room. And if you're in Davos in that, you're in the wrong room. Apart from in the bathroom, which is maybe different.
Well, just to speak to your point, certainly covering what's now called nature tech, which is a real thing actually, and I mean, there are real investors in nature. Like I said, we're doing a nature fund, which I'd never, probably about 2 years ago, that hadn't really appeared very much. And there are even things like blue ocean funds or blue funds now for ocean technology. So I'm actually really excited and bullish about that kind of thing. And I'm very excited that say, for instance, carbon sequestration in, say, agricultural tech has a huge amount of potential, or rewilding technology to rewild to create biodiversity. Of course, many of us know that there are many drugs that could be developed from, in the Amazon that we really need to preserve nature in order to be able to develop these kinds of fantastic tools for humankind. So I'm very excited about that. It was just a question of making it scale. That's the slightly frustrating thing, but I'm hoping we'll get there. We're actually out of time, and we're now moving on to our next session. But ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Mark and for unDavos, and we'll see you later at their sessions. And let's hear from Nick Gowing.
Thank you very much. Thank you.